you thought was notable?
That Trump is winning so big?
Yeah.
Oh,
in
no.
the six.
Oh, I'm not surprised at all. I travel the country all the time. He is winning so big, it's not even funny. Blowing Biden out of the water.
What are you seeing on the ground that, is maybe not translating here in D.C. or, for
That's actually a great way to phrase it. What doesn't translate in D.C. is exactly how the American people feel. Yeah. And that is that everyone is fed up with the Biden administration and their policies. Our border is a very serious crisis. Crime across America is out of control. People are fed up with it. The education system got ruined over 2 years with COVID shutdowns. People are like, don't mess with our kids.
Why do you think that's true? Just because he's convicted. They don't believe anything now. Why would they believe that?
There are some that will change their vote.
That is exactly what these polls have shown. I think when you are, look, it's any kind of relationship. When you're 100% committed, it's really hard to say you're wrong.
Yeah.
Yes,
People
true.
go, why are you still with this guy? And you're just like, well, I thought he would do this, or I liked what he did there. And it's hard for people to separate. And I did say, and I believe this, and there are a lot of other people, not just me, saying this. Liz Cheney said it recently, that there's a kind of cult-like dimension here.
Yeah.
He's like a walking id. In psychology, you've got the ego and the superego and the id. And so a lot of people go, oh, man, did you hear what he said? It's like watching a constant entertainment show. And so people get hooked into that, and they don't want to give it up because it is, kind of entertaining and interesting.
To watch the chaos.
Well, all right, guys, so we got to talk about the Cackling Hens, who hosted Hillary Clinton on the show for her to have a full-blown, panic-driven, Trump-deranged meltdown over the fact that polls show that Trump, if election was held today, would win in a landslide victory over Biden. Now, there's a lot of people on the left that are essentially going to come out here and say after last night that, well, Trump doesn't have a chance, that the polls are wrong, okay, that you shouldn't believe the polls, that everything is great. And quite honestly, I'm glad that they're having that takeaway from it, because that means they're going to double down on their extremism. I personally believe that if the GOP could just simply fix the abortion issue, the GOP will win. Right? I mean, they essentially just need to basically just, be okay with the win in Roe v. Wade and leave it alone, right? Stop talking about it, okay? Don't try to continue to push the issue. And the GOP will win in a landslide, right? I truly and sincerely believe that. Why do I believe that? It's because polls show that Trump and the Republicans are winning on literally every single issue except that, right? Except that one issue, okay? So again, if Republicans just, compromise on that issue, right, aka stop talking about it, stop pushing bans, they'll win, okay? And Democrats know this, okay? They know this. And this is why they're still panicking over the polls, right? They're still panicking over the fact that if the election was held today, Trump, who has taken a common sense stance on this issue, right, they're afraid that Trump is going to win. And they're more afraid of what Trump is going to do if he wins. Because Trump is preparing to dismantle the deep state and to seek justice against the individuals who waged a political persecution against him, right? There are a lot of these individuals, probably starting with Joe Biden first, okay? And again, Democrats like Hillary Clinton are scared to death, okay? She's so afraid that she's comparing Trump to Hitler on The View. Take a look.
I think that your loss to Trump in 2016 will go down in history as one of the most pivotal times in our country, one of the most pivotal moments in our country. And it's still reeling from, Trump's policies, I think, and the deep divisions that he sowed in this country. What, in your view, would happen if he were to be reelected?
Oh, I can't even think that, because I think it would be the end of our country as we know it. And I don't say that lightly. I hated losing, and I especially hated losing to him because I had seen so many warning signals during the campaign. But I immediately said, look, we have to give him a chance. We've got to support, the president we have. And I meant it. And I tried really hard. And then literally from his inauguration on, it was nothing but, accusing people of things, making up facts, denying the size of the crowd at his own inauguration. And everything that I worried about, I saw unfolding. And so I think that he'd be even worse now because he was somewhat restrained, believe it or not, in the first term by people who he hired because he thought they would go along with him, and they stood up to him. And so now he is going to, if he were ever near the Oval Office again, find people who have no principles, no conscience, who are totally tied, you know, to his fortunes, literally, and therefore would do whatever he said. And so the wreckage is almost unimaginable. You know, when I was Secretary of State, I used to talk about one and done. And what I meant by that is that people would get legitimately elected, and then they would try to do away with elections and do away with opposition and do away with a free press. And you could see it in countries where, well, Hitler was duly elected.
That's right.
Right? And so all of a sudden, somebody with those tendencies, those dictatorial, authoritarian tendencies, would be like, oh, okay, we're going to shut this down. We're going to throw these people in jail. And they didn't usually telegraph that. Trump is telling us what he intends to do.
We need to listen to
Take him at his word. The man means to throw people in jail who disagree with him, shut down legitimate press outlets, do what he can to literally undermine the rule of law and our country's values.
He will use the military to stop protesters.
He's going to do it. He's not going to do a whole bunch of stuff right now.
Well, not yet.
Not right now. Well, no, not right yet. But we'll find out what more we think can go on when we come back.
Yeah, so there's just so much irony and projection in what Hillary just said, right? You know, first and foremost, I love how the party of people whose base, let's just say, does not really think too fondly of Jewish people right now, right, in regards to their rhetoric, loves comparing people in the other party to Hitler and also screaming about anti-Semitism. Truly amazing stuff. Also, on top of that, I love how Hillary claimed that, well, I tried my best from day one to try to support Trump when he was elected president in 2016. When this is the same individual who quite literally made up a conspiracy that him and Putin were working in collusion to overthrow the 2016 election, right? A false conspiracy that she made up as a way to delegitimize Trump's presidency, right? She refuses to acknowledge that Trump was legitimately, freely, and fairly elected in 2016. But yet she claims that, well, I tried my best. I tried my best to support him, right, since the day that he took office. When you never accepted the fact that the election was free and fair from the get-go. You never accepted it, okay? In fact, you still peddled the conspiracy that Russia had helped Trump win, even though there's no evidence that that's the case. But again, what I want to talk to you guys about is what these people are so afraid of, right? And what they're afraid of is something I talked to you guys about before, which is Project 2025, which is a plan that was advised by a bunch of conservative think tanks and former Trump administration officials to essentially dismantle the administrative state, okay? They are basically going to fix the issues of Trump's first presidency, in which Trump wanted to do a lot of things, but he was stonewalled by the establishment. What they're actually really doing is bringing together a bunch of scholars who are going to not take no for an answer. They're actually going to find ways to do things that Trump wanted to do that he could not do, or that people tried to talk him out of when he was president. Now, one of the things that they're really afraid of is that Trump is going to arrest protesters that protest against him once he wins. Now, what I find to be pretty fascinating about this is that what they're essentially acknowledging is that if Trump wins, what you're probably going to see is a left-wing insurrection. You're going to see the left-wing version of January 6th, because they're not going to be able to stomach the idea of Trump winning. Now, we all know how the left has a double standard when it comes to left-wing insurrections. Like, for example, the insurrection led by Rashida Tlaib, and also what we recently saw in regards to the pro-Palestine protesters, rioters that tried to invade the White House, right? We see that the left conveniently turns a blind eye to political violence that happens on their side of the aisle. Just like they turn a blind eye to Antifa, they turn a blind eye to BLM, they turn a blind eye to the Roe v. Wade rioters who tried to assassinate a Supreme Court justice. They turn a blind eye to it. Trump, this time around, is saying that I'm not going to do what I failed to do in 2020, which is to invoke the Insurrection Act and to arrest and prosecute left-wing extremists who commit acts of violence. Because we know that the left is not going to do it on multiple levels, right? They're not going to arrest them. And the ones that are arrested, they're going to get a slap on the wrist. In fact, they actually might get paid, right? They might get paid for their troubles of vandalizing, destroying property, being agents of chaos. And they just so happen to get roughed up by a few brave police officers that actually care about law and order, right? Which is what we saw. We saw BLM activists, protesters, rioters get paid even though they committed acts of vandalism. They got paid because police roughed them up a little bit, right? Trump is saying, look, I'm actually going to use the military to quell the protests, the riots that will happen against me if I'm elected president again. Because who is naive enough to believe that there won't be left-wing extremists that decide to commit acts of violence, to vandalize property, to take over the streets, to destroy businesses, to loot, to steal, to burn things down like they did in 2020? Who is naive enough to believe that that won't happen if Trump is elected? If I was a bet man, I would most certainly bet that that's exactly what's going to happen, because we've seen it time and time again. Even the left knows. So they're afraid. They're like, oh no, Trump's actually going to hold our violent extremists accountable, right? This is what they're afraid of, right? They're literally boohoo, whining, and crying that Trump is going to hold violent left-wing extremists accountable for committing acts of domestic terrorism. This is what they're afraid of. They're also afraid that Trump is going to go after people like Joe Biden, which again, it's ironic because Hillary is boohoo, whining, and crying. Trump's going to try to lock up his political opponents. Is that not what Democrats are doing right now? Right? Democrats literally are locking up their political opponents, right? That's what they're trying to do to the president, which again, I find to be fascinating. They really believe that Trump is supposed to be okay with what is obviously clearly political persecution. They are trying to keep the man from being able to run for president by either taking him off the ballot, okay, or by locking him up in jail. They're trying to financially break his business empire, okay? They are accusing him of being, a predator, okay, towards women. Again, they're trying to break the man on every single level, and you truly believe that he's not going to get back in office and try to extract justice, right? Like, you think he's supposed to just turn the other cheek and say, oh, well, I'm okay with you trying to basically destroy me, because had I not won and become president, I would be in jail, right? You really think he's not going to try to, even the score? Of course he is. Of course. And I mean, let's be real. It's not really even revenge. It's justice. Like, for example, he's going to allegedly go after General Mark Miley, right? Who, in my opinion, committed an act of treason, right? He committed an act of treason by calling China and saying, hey, look, well, we're going to warn you ahead of time if Trump tries to issue a nuclear strike on your country after January 6th, as if Trump would actually do something like that, right? Him and Nancy Pelosi colluded to essentially overthrow the commander-in-chief of the military, right? By literally working with a foreign country. That, by definition, is treason, okay? Mark Milley committed an act of treason. Trump saying, yeah, I want to hold him accountable, right? I want justice. Oh, my God, Trump is terrible. So you're okay with treason? Again, if any military general did that to a Democrat, to Obama, or to Biden, you think these people would be okay with that? You think they would find that to be okay? Also, when it comes to Biden, as we know, sold out the American people overseas by influence peddling. The Biden crime family as a whole made business deals in Ukraine in exchange for foreign policy decisions that Biden made to protect the people that were paying off his family. He did that in Ukraine. He did it in China. We know this, and he should be held accountable for it. He should be investigated and charged with money laundering and criminal acts related to selling out the American people, because that's what he did as vice president. So again, what they're panicking about is Trump doing something that people criticize him for not doing in 2020 or in doing his presidency, which is holding the left more accountable for their corruption and their crimes, right? He wants to dismantle the deep state and to put actual conservatives in some of these positions while also severely shrinking the size of the federal bureaucracy, right? This is stuff that has to happen. It has to happen. There has to be a top to bottom overhaul of the Justice Department, the FBI, okay? We need to get rid of diversity and inclusion, okay, initiatives in the Pentagon. We need to get the woke agenda out of the military. These are things that have to and need to be done, and this is what they're panicking about, right? They're panicking because they know that with Trump having only one term, if he's elected in 2024, that he has free reign to do whatever he can in his power because he doesn't have to worry about being elected, right? He's literally a man with nothing to lose. And that scares them the most. The fact that Trump, if he is reelected, will have nothing to lose, and he'll actually have the cojones to do what he probably should have did during his first term. It's fascinating stuff. They're not afraid that Trump is going to get in office and actually be a dictator and he's not going to leave and, you know, blah, blah. I mean, he's going to be 85 plus years old. They're not actually afraid of that. They just throw it out there to try to, you know, fearmonger to stupid people. What they're really afraid of is in the 4 years that Trump has, he's going to be no holds bar on doing what should have been done during his first term. So again, this is what they're afraid of, which makes me want to vote for Trump even more. One thing that is for sure is that if Trump is reelected, these people are going to lose their mind. The panic and the outrage is going to be something we've never seen before in this country. Okay? So again, it looks like that's going to be the case as long as Republicans, right, chill out on the abortion issue. And I have to emphasize that because that is probably the only issue, in my opinion, between Trump and the White House. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.